Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast. Life and the choices we make, the choices other people make. This podcast explores all things as they relate to dating and romantic relationships. Why we ignore or choose to ignore or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, narcissistic behavior, deception, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so I can help you navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show or have been with me from the beginning, hold on tight to the Anonymous Andrew Experience. Hello and greetings from Anonymous Andrew podcast, life and the choices we make. So this will be my weekend rant, second weekend in January, but I'm also going to post this on YouTube. It's Friday night, January 12th. And I am coming up on 1 year anniversary of my podcast. And I want to thank everybody who has listened, supported me, who had been a guest. It's been a wild, unimaginable ride that, I belong to a couple of podcast communities, and one of them tell you that there's a high percentage of podcasters that start a podcast that do not make it through the first year. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of work, and people think it's just easy to get a microphone and some software and you pay, or sometimes you don't pay. There are some platforms out there, I think Spotify is one of them, where you can do everything for free. I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't know what kind of quality audio you get or whatever, but the point is that podcasting, while it's a passion of mine, it's not as easy as I thought it would be. 1 year ago today, I was angry and bitter about a breakup that I had gone through. And I am a very open and honest and vulnerable and blunt person. And sometimes that gets me in a lot of trouble. I sometimes say things, what's that expression? You say things before you think, so I don't think before I open my mouth. And that has gotten me in a lot of trouble over the years. And you think if you go onto a podcast, you might be a little filtered. I'm not filtered on this podcast whatsoever. I wasn't going to come on tonight and do an episode because I'm honestly in a very bad mood. And I don't know why. It's Friday night. I've had a long work week. I'm done. I am home. I'm up in the Northeast and we're going to get this really bad storm tonight. So I'm hunkered down in my home. All I have to do when I'm done with this is I can crawl into bed and watch some TV and relax and eat a chocolate bar, basically, or a cookie. If you guys follow me, you know that's sometimes what I do. But there's something bothering me, and I think I know what it is. And I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's several things. And to go back to what I just said about being unfiltered, there have been already on this podcast alone, I have already said things that I should not have said, or at least that was what was said to me or told to me. This last relationship that spawned this podcast that I was in, I was constantly apologizing. I was always in the doghouse, always trying to please her, always chasing her, and not people pleasing, trying to please her. And this went on for 2.5 years, almost 3, where I would be on my knees begging for forgiveness for something that I don't even know if I did wrong. If you know some of my story, you know that most of my relationships, when they ended, I jumped right into another one without pausing and reflecting about why that relationship ended. What part did I play in that relationship ending? I would always either point the finger. I would think if I just jump back on a dating app, I'd find the next woman and just plow through. Just next, like turning a page in a book. And that doesn't work. It hasn't worked. If you listen to any of my episodes, I have been doing that for 25 years. I've only been married one time, and that lasted 7 years. And I'm grateful for that marriage because I got from that marriage 2 wonderful grown men now, who of which one has my grandchildren. And then I had another civil union, which produced another child. So I've had, while some of these relationships were not healthy or they didn't last very long, although I would say the marriage was 7 years and the second relationship where I was like a civil union was almost 10 years. But after that, they were diminished. They would go 1 year, and then next would be 18 months, and then next would be 2 years, and the next would be 6 months, and then I would play around a little bit. I'm not much of a player. I don't do friends with benefits. I don't do one night stands. I was always looking for love, companionship, long term. Like I want to be committed to somebody and have them commit to me. And I thought I found that in my last relationship. And shame on me because, there's a series on Netflix called Fool Me Once. Great show. It's a limited series. Take a watch. Take a look if you're interested. But Fool Me Once, and so the point I'm getting at here is that after that relationship ended and spawned this podcast, I had to stop dating. I had to stop pursuing a romantic partner relationship because none of them were working. Yeah, I did go on a dozen dates in the past year. I needed to. I had to get out of the house. I had to meet. I also had to have content for the podcast because the podcast is about relationships, healthy, toxic, gaslighting, narcissism, the do's and don'ts. It encompasses anything and everything about relationships, good and bad. So while I have 25 years plus experience in relationships in the dating world, as you probably are well aware of, it has changed tremendously. The modern dating culture is just upside down. It is. I gotta, if I'm gonna post this on YouTube, I gotta keep it clean. So I gotta be a little filtered here, but basically I'm gonna try not to curse. And lost my train of thought there. So let's get back to why I'm in a bad mood. And what I'm about to say, probably I shouldn't say. Back to sometimes I open my mouth. I went on a date several weeks ago with somebody that I really enjoyed. And so did she. To the point where at the end of the date, there was, we'd like to do this again. And over the next couple of days, we were making plans for our second date through texting and phone calls. But the night of that date, I came back home and I jumped on here and I did one of my weekend rants. And I told the audience all about that date in a positive way, because it was a great date. I'm not going to get into specifics. If you want to go back 2 weekends, it was a New Year's Eve weekend rant. What happened was this date, I'm going to be very vague about this, because this date did not appreciate that I came back that night and I jumped on the podcast and that I talked about our date. And it took me a whole week, because she ultimately texted me a couple of days later and said that she was ceasing communication with me. She was upset that I aired our private date. By the way, I didn't mention her name. I didn't mention where she lives. Everybody knows that this is called the Anonymous Andrew Podcast. Even my anonymity, I try to keep limited. I mean, I'm sure if you Google me, you could find something information about me. But for the most part, nobody knows where I live. Nobody knows my last name. Nobody knows any other detail other than what I've already exposed or told you. But this woman had a problem with what I did that night. And I felt sorry, genuinely sorry that I did that on one hand, because maybe I should have asked her, hey, listen, I had a great time tonight. She knew I had a podcast, and I should have texted her and said, would you be okay if I went on and talked about our date tonight? And she might have said, yeah, but don't talk about this, this, and this. I don't know. It never happened. I never asked, and I'll never know. But on the other hand, I have been people-pleasing for 25 or, God, maybe all my life. I'm always looking for somebody's acceptance or likeness, or they will accept me or like me or love me, or people-pleasing, right? What is people-pleasing? It's trying to be nice to everybody so they like you. And that's what I did in my last relationship. And I think she got tired of it. And, you know, I bought her flowers and gifts, and I cooked her things, and I took her places, and I was always trying to make her happy, never once realizing that I was miserable inside because she wasn't reciprocating. And I've said this before, she did many things for me. She was very crafty. She would make things for me with her hands. She decorated my apartment. She bought appliances for my kitchen. So I'm not going to say that she never contributed to the relationship or reciprocated things, but emotionally, I never got back what I put into it. And when I decided to take 1 year off from relationships, not dating, okay, because I did go on some dates, out of maybe those 12 to 15 dates that I went on this past year, I think there was only one or two that went to a second date. But that was it. We didn't go on. We didn't go further. Because I wasn't ready. I was not ready to, they go on first date, you like it, you go on a second date, and you like that, then you get a third date, and now you're on a roll. So if you start dating somebody, one person, where does that lead to? It leads to a relationship, possibly, ultimately, maybe. And that's what I was trying to not do, is get back into another relationship. As much as I wanted to, because my heart was hurting, my ego was bruised, I felt no self-respect, and I figured if I could find another woman and I could forget about the last woman. No, I took a year off and I sat in my SHIT. I sat in it for a year. I needed to learn how to be by myself. It's freaking Friday night, and I'm sitting home because there's some storm coming, and they're telling everybody to stay off the roads. We're getting like 2 inches of rain or something. And then in 2 days after that, we're getting some snow, another storm with snow. If you guys know anything, you know I hate the winter, and I hate where I live in the Northeast, and I want to go to Florida. But for the time being, I'm stuck here for now. I got a good job. I got family up here. I got my grandkids up here. So I'm staying here for now. But my goal is to get out of this suburban nightmare that I'm in and go down to Florida. So why am I in a bad mood? I never really answered that. I don't know. I just came home. I had dinner. I'm doing something that probably is a good thing on one hand and bad on the other hand. The ex-girlfriend was a Latina, and when I was younger, in my teenage years, I had visited South America, and she's from South America. And I had learned Spanish because I had visited South America in my teens as a student exchange. I was fortunate enough to go down as a student in South America. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I visited several countries down there, and I learned Spanish at 15 years old. And I also took French in high school, so I was trilingual. I was very good in foreign languages. But when I came back and went to college, that's when my alcohol and my drug career took off. And being dumb and naive and young, I didn't realize that I had this great gift of speaking 3 languages and that I should keep it up. That could help me in my future life, my career. If you could speak 3 languages, it opens up so many doors and so many careers. Especially today, look at any resumes or job postings. If you're bilingual, it's a plus. So anyway, I forgot how to speak Spanish, and when I met the Latina 3.5 something years ago, she admired that I wanted to relearn Spanish. Now, it was in there, but 40 years ago. So I picked up an app and I started learning Spanish again. What I didn't realize is that 40 years of drug use and alcohol use fry several brain. I mean, I know that that's what happens, but I really had to start learning Spanish from scratch. There were phrases and certain grammar things that I knew about the Spanish language, but I really had to start from scratch. So anyway, the point is that I'm taking Spanish lessons again. And I'm doing that also at my age because I have read and been told that in order to keep the brain sharp and to possibly, what's the word, stave off Alzheimer's or stave off dementia or any type of brain malady, is to learn something new and keep the brain functioning. So I'm learning Spanish. So I think I brought that up because when I came home tonight and I had dinner, then I do at least an hour a day of Spanish. I do a half hour, 45 minutes in the morning. I do it in the evening, and if I have time during lunch, I will, whatever. So the point is I have to squeeze in my day. I work 8 to 5. I go to AA meetings, and then I have this podcast. And of course, I have a family. I got 2 of my sons who live still near me, and I like to see them often. Somewhere in there, I got to put these Spanish lessons in there. But so I came home tonight, and I had dinner, and I did my Spanish lesson, and I'm going to point that way because that's where my room is. I was going to go just crawl into bed and put on Netflix and tune out. But I was sitting here just checking some of my emails and doing some podcast stuff, booking guests and whatever. And this feeling of anger came over me and discontent. And the first thought was, Friday nights I usually do my weekend rant, and I said, "Oh, I probably shouldn't do a weekend rant if I'm not in a good mood." And then I said, "Why not?" Usually on the weekends, and if I can do it, I can probably pull it up. On the weekends, I read reviews. I don't think I can pull it up here. I read reviews. If somebody leaves a new review on Apple, I like to read them for you. And I'm up to almost 50 reviews, and I think I got some more reviews. I forget why I mentioned that. And now I'm having difficulty multitasking right now. If I can find my podcast. That's not even the podcast. Okay. Anyway, if I could find them. Actually, I think I just found it. Yeah. You know, I could also go off on a rant about technology. I have the iPhone 13, and I went to upgrade it last week. I went to my carrier, and they said, "Oh, no, you got 18 more months on your contract." And I said, "What does that mean?" "Well, you'd have to pay for the iPhone 15. We don't have any specials that you can trade your phone in." And I said, "I don't think that's correct because the last time I paid the phone outright." And he said, "No, you're paying the phone off." Anyway, my iPhone is slowing down. The battery isn't lasting as long, and I got so many apps on there, and of course 1,000 pictures and 500 videos and whatever. So I need a new phone, but that off on a tangent. There we go. Yeah, I think I read all these reviews to you. Yeah. Well, I wanted to read one of them to you. Here's one, 5 stars. Raw and real is Andrew's deal. Appreciate the transparency, even in rants and expression of opinions. The vulnerability is raw, real, and authentic. And thanks for sharing your journey with us. That's what I'm talking about. I don't hold back. I just come on here and that's what I did that night that I went on a date. And I didn't do anything negative. I praised this woman up and down. I told everybody how beautiful she was, what a great time we had, and I just repeated a conversation we had, and she didn't like that. And I don't blame her, but I'm not going to get back to that. But the following week, I came on here and I apologized to her on the podcast. And I don't know if she still listens. She probably doesn't. If she didn't like what I said and told me she wasn't going to communicate with me anymore, I don't know why she would continue to listen to my podcast. So if she's listening, I do apologize for not asking you first. But I have my self-respect and my dignity, and I'm trying to create. This is my way of expression. This podcast is it's my therapy. It's my way to come on here on a weekend and I'm sorry, there, I just said it. I get out of my system what's bothering me. I used to pay a therapist $175 every session to go in there and sit on a chair and do the same thing. I still do that with a therapist, but she's a nurse practitioner, and I'm on some medication that she prescribes, so I have to do that. But there was another therapist that I would pay each week and just open up and rant, and why pay someone to do that when I could do it here? And you guys listen, whether you listen or not. Right now, I am literally looking at myself in a computer. So I don't see an audience in front of me. I don't know if there's 50 of you listening or 500 of you listening. I mean, ultimately, I look at the data and I know how many people listen to each episode. The point is that I don't want to have to hold back on my podcast. I want to be able to come on here and talk about whatever I want to talk about, with a footnote, without hurting somebody else. So I'm not going to out anybody. When I started this podcast and I was really angry at my ex, I didn't name her. I made up a name. I called her Laura. She's nowhere, not even close to her name. I didn't say what country she was from, because she was emigrated here. There was so much information about her that I could have detailed that could have actually gotten her in trouble. I came on here and all I did was talk about how the relationship was toxic. At the time, I thought I was a victim and that she did all this stuff to me. I'm the one that stayed in that relationship and received and accepted the abuse, and I had the freedom to walk away anytime I wanted, and I did not. And I had therapists and sponsors and very close friends and family members who I would complain to. Oh, look what she did to me this week, and she cheated on me last week, I think, but I don't have the proof. And everybody would just look at me and go, what do you want us to do? You're still there. Walk away. But I didn't. I stayed. From the first day that I suspected she was cheating and doing some other prostituting, I'm going to say it. So I take accountability for all of that. And in taking this past year off And now, see, I came on tonight with the intent to celebrate almost my 1 year anniversary. It's not really down to the day, but it's around this time last year I started this podcast. And you would think that I would be on here being happy, joyous, and free, and I am, and I still thank everybody that has supported me. I have gotten some wonderful feedback on all of the social media, and I have a social media manager. Her name is Lindsay Brown. Lindsay, you are a doll. Thank you. If you guys look at my Instagram, my TikTok, and my Facebook, and you see all those promos, that's not me. That's Lindsay. Okay? She's technically employed by me. So, I don't even know where I was going with that. So I was, you would think I'd be on here tonight being all excited about it's 1 year and I'm still on. And yes, I've grown. My listenership almost tripled in the past, I don't know, 4 to 5, 6 months. For the first year, for the first 6 months, when you join the podcast service that distributes your podcast, they give you the analytics. They track your podcast. They tell you exactly who's listening. They don't identify you by IP address, but the location. So I know where in the country or globally. I have listeners in Australia, South America, Europe. I got somebody in Alaska and Hawaii. I got somebody in Hawaii. So and most recently, not only do I have somebody in England, London, and Spain, because I actually had a woman from Spain reach out to me, and I did a appearance on her podcast in Spain. Anyway, the point is I'm all over the place, and this podcast is growing. I'm getting out there, but there's 5 million podcasts. This is an estimation. So if you take one of those scales, right, the top 5% podcasters are up here, the ones that have 5 million listeners, Joe Rogan, and go down Esther Perel, and you go down the list down to the podcaster at the very bottom who might have 5 listeners. According to one of the communities I joined, I'm between half and the top. I'm in 2/3. Only because I'm still going. So to be considered a successful podcaster, and you can be independent like I am, or you can be picked up by a podcast or a multimedia company could pick you up and produce it for you and promote it for you and pay you for it. I haven't reached that status yet, and although I would invite that, I don't know that I'm ready for that yet. But I would invite that. I've actually had on LinkedIn 2 job offers to be a podcaster for a company. They wanted me to apply, and I did not apply. That's another whole story. I've been told I have a good voice. Well, I know that. I was a DJ in high school, and I've done voiceovers. I've done many public speaking events. But I don't need to get into all that. So I was just in a very bad mood tonight, and I don't know why. I think the past year of staying single, I have kind of slid into this comfortable space where not having a woman, normally in a relationship, on a Friday night, especially in the middle of the winter, there's my couch right there. There would be a woman that we would be under a blanket watching Netflix or Amazon or Paramount or Apple, whatever. That's good. That's what the last girlfriend and I would do, and the one before that on the cold nights. I'm not talking about year round. I'm talking about on the nights that you don't go out and do something. But I don't have anybody, and I've become comfortable coming home night after night after night, and I now have a routine, and I am almost terrified to get into a relationship at this point because I have gotten so complacent and comfortable in my. To anybody who's listening, who's single, whether you're dating or just not dating because you just whatever reason, you know what I'm talking about. You have this routine from the minute you wake up in the morning to the minute you go to bed at night. You have a certain way of doing things throughout that day. Whether you work or not, whether maybe you volunteer, maybe you're a mother, maybe you're whatever you do during the day, you have a routine and a way of things that you. I never had that when I was in relationships because I was always trying to please the other person, and I never took time to take care of myself. Today, I take care of myself. I weigh 170 pounds. Before my sobriety, I got sober almost 9 years ago. I was 250 pounds. 2 years ago, I dropped down to 140. Not on purpose. I wasn't trying to lose any weight. I got to take a sip of water. Somehow I just lost weight. And my doctor and family and everybody said, hey, you got to go to the doctor and get checked out. Why are you losing this weight? Turns out that I just stopped eating red meat, and I stopped eating junk food, and I stopped eating McDonald's and Burger King and Popeyes and fried food and potato chips and processed foods. And I'm not going to bore you with what I eat today, but it is all natural, organic food. I buy everything fresh, and I cook my own meals, and that's all I'm going to say about it. So, but I still have a couple of pounds that I like to lose because at my age, I have what they might refer to as a beer gut, but I don't drink beer. I'm sober. I don't drink, but I still have that little flab. But even today, somebody at my job said to me, what are you doing? You look like skin and bones. So I guess my face and my body, I might hide that belly well because people are telling me I'm looking too thin. You know what? Maybe that's why I'm. 2 nights ago, I and I will admit this. I take something to go to sleep at night. I'm one of those people that have racing thoughts. So when my head hits the pillow, I could be so tired, but when my head hits the pillow and I close the eyes, then that, we used to call them voice recorders or tape recorders, start playing. And you start thinking about your day, and you start thinking about whatever, and it doesn't shut up. It goes on and on and on. And there are times if I'm not sedated, I have to sit up and I turn the TV back on to drown out my thoughts. I've learned meditation, and I take a mild sedative to go to sleep. And it is legal, and I get a prescription for it. So anyway, 2 nights ago, in my routine, I got into bed, did my routine and then went to sleep. I had the most horrific nightmares that night. And I can't remember the last time I had a nightmare. I just don't get them. The medicine that I take probably, I know that I dream, but I don't remember them. Anyway, the point is 2 nights ago, I had a really, really, really disturbing dream. Very disturbing. It had nothing to do with my ex or any romance or anything about that. It was just, I'm not going to get into it, but I think I'm just a little frustrated. It's a year after. So my relationship ended in October of 2023. No, 22. October of 2022. I started the podcast in January. It is now a year later. And while I have come a long way, I am now comfortable in my own skin. I don't care that I'm home alone tonight. I really don't care. I am literally talking to you, and then I'm going to go watch some TV. And then tomorrow morning, I got a full morning. I got to get up. I'm going to go to an AA meeting. I got food shopping to do. I got laundry to do. Sunday morning, I'm playing tennis with my tennis club. And then I may see one of my sons Sunday afternoon. I'm happy. But why am I pissed off tonight? I just don't know. Good friend of mine just called me as I began recording you. I had to silence it. She's probably going to listen to this, so I don't want to say her name, but she knows who she is. You called me right in the middle of me doing it. That's why I didn't take your call. I will call you back. So, all right. I think I blabbered on enough. I was going to read you some more reviews. I'm not going to bore you with those tonight. I am, just to give you an update on the dating world, back on Facebook dating, and I am now talking to 3 women. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm talking to 3 women. Normally I would go into detail and tell you what my thoughts about each one of them are, but I'm not going to do that because the last time I did that, it backfired on me. And that's part of the problem, is that I don't want to be filtered. I don't want to have to come on here and hold back. 6 months ago when I did that and it got me in trouble, if the woman didn't like it, I didn't care because I wasn't really ready to be in a relationship. But now I am, they call this cuffing season, right? This is the season between, I think, the week or two before Thanksgiving through Valentine's Day is cuffing season. And that, I'm sorry, I don't know why they call it cuffing, but it's the time when single people really put an effort into finding a soulmate or partner. Boy, where does soulmate come from? A partner. They get their dating apps are hopping, and whatever. I'm talking to 3 women on Facebook. So one of the things I'll be doing in the bed watching TV will be chatting with these women. So, all right. I think I've talked long enough. I don't know if I got out why I was upset at tonight. I'm pissed off at something. But the good part is I think I may have just solved it. I just talked to you guys and I feel better already. So, listen, oh, yeah, there is one more thing. If you guys haven't watched the documentary on Netflix and Amazon called The Twin Flames Universe, one's called Escaping the Twin Flames Universe, and one's called Seeking the Soulmate. 2 different networks did 2 different documentaries on the Twin Flames Universe cult, and I'm going to say the word cult. They don't call themselves a cult. They call themselves an organization. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. I mentioned it last week, and tonight, Lindsay's putting up a promo on Instagram and Facebook. I'm looking for members of this TFU, ex-members and the family members, to come on here and help me bring this organization down. They need, listen, Netflix and Amazon is pretty big. I can't compete with them, but I want to continue the conversation. I think Netflix, this is what happened. Netflix and Amazon did this documentary. It raised all this hubbub, and everybody got all up in arms about it. And all these groups started popping up on Facebook, of which I belong to a couple of them. And I'm asking them to come forward. If you're an ex-member or a family member of somebody who's in this cult, or have any knowledge, or maybe worked for them, because apparently when you go to this cult and you work there, they don't pay you. It's a real company, and I think they're trying to hide under the religious law where they don't have to pay taxes. You gotta watch this documentary. It's just freaking amazing what they're getting away with. I am looking for people to talk to about this. So anybody, if you have any knowledge about this, outside knowledge, inside knowledge, you were there, your child is still in there, you work there, whatever, or you have an opinion about it, please contact me and I'll put you on. We'll talk about it. Okay, that was the one thing. I've been talking about this for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm trying to find somebody to come on. I have one person that I have recorded that she and I had a deep conversation about it. But I want to do like a docuseries. I want to do like several weeks of a deep dive into this whole Twin Flames thing. So, okay, I got to go. On that note, and as always, as I end my podcast, if you could share this with somebody, if you know somebody that could benefit, this coming Tuesday, we'll drop my next episode. I'll have a great interview for you. And if you are in a dating relationship, situationship, and you are thinking of committing, please, I urge of you to take some time before you jump and commit. Were there any red flags that you missed? You're going to get me to go off on a tangent here, because I missed, or I ignored, huge red flags in my last relationship that would have told me from day one that she was going to do what she did to me. So I urge you to take some time and analyze those little things that you saw, but you said, I'm going to ignore that. Or maybe it'll go away. It doesn't. And if your gut, your intuition is telling you that something's not right, believe it. Okay. That's it. Anonymous Andrew, until next week, until next episode, until whenever. Ciao.